In a small town, there lived a man named Samuel. He was known for his dedication to his work, always striving for perfection in everything he did. Samuel's days were filled with meetings, deadlines, and never-ending tasks, leaving him with little time for anything else. One sunny morning, as Samuel rushed to his office, he passed by a park where children were playing, couples were sharing laughter, and elderly people were feeding pigeons. A sense of nostalgia washed over him, a longing for the simple joys he had once known. As he entered his office, a notification popped up on his computer screen. It was a reminder, Mother's birthday. Samuel sighed, realizing that he had nearly forgotten this special day. He quickly sent an impersonal birthday message and returned to his work. That evening, as he walked home from work, Samuel noticed a quaint antique shop he had never seen before. Drawn by a peculiar clock displayed in the window, he entered the shop. The elderly shopkeeper, Mr. Jenkins, greeted him warmly. Samuel inquired about the clock, and Mr. Jenkins explained that it was a unique timepiece. It could not only tell the time, but also grant a person a few extra hours in their day to be used however they wished. Intrigued but skeptical, Samuel decided to purchase the clock, thinking it might help him manage his ever-demanding schedule. He paid Mr. Jenkins and took the clock home. The next morning, as Samuel stared at the clock on his desk, he felt a peculiar sensation. He turned the hands of the clock forward, granting himself 2 extra hours in the day. He expected to accomplish more work, but as the minutes ticked by, he felt an overwhelming urge to visit his mother. With his newfound time, Samuel decided to drive to his childhood home, where his mother now lived alone. When he arrived, he was greeted with surprise and delight. His mother, aging and frail, hadn't seen her son in months. They spent those precious hours reminiscing about old times, sharing stories, and laughing together. Samuel had forgotten how much he cherished these moments with his mother. When it was time for him to leave, he promised to visit more often. Days turned into weeks, and Samuel continued to use the clock to grant himself extra hours. However, he no longer used them to work longer hours at the office. Instead, he used them to rekindle old friendships, take leisurely walks in the park, and enjoy the simple pleasures of life. One evening, as Samuel sat by the fireplace with a cup of tea, he received a call from Mr. Jenkins, the shopkeeper. Mr. Jenkins explained that the clock could only grant a person extra time for a limited period, and that period was about to end. Samuel was faced with a difficult choice. He could keep the clock for himself and continue to enjoy the extra time, or he could return it to Mr. Jenkins, allowing someone else to experience its gift. That night, Samuel visited his mother once more. They sat in silence, savoring each other's presence. Samuel knew what he had to do. He couldn't keep the clock for himself any longer. The next day, he returned to Mr. Jenkins' shop and handed him the clock. Samuel explained how it had transformed his life, allowing him to reconnect with the people and the world around him. With a warm smile, Mr. Jenkins thanked Samuel and told him that he was the first person to return the clock willingly. He shared a secret with Samuel. The true magic of the clock was not in the extra hours it granted, but in the realization of how precious and irreplaceable time with loved ones truly was. As Samuel left the shop, he felt lighter, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He knew that the gift of time he had received was far more valuable than the hours themselves. It was the gift of love, of rekindled relationships, and of a life well lived. From that day forward, Samuel's life took a different course. He continued to cherish the moments he had with his mother, his friends, and the world around him. He learned that true richness was not in the number of hours one had, but in the love and connections shared with others. And so, In the quiet moments of his life, Samuel found the greatest treasure of all, the gift of time well spent.